Okay. So let's say you're a new person to aquascaping, and you want to go get some plants. Uh, is there a particular group of plants that you could pick, maybe that would be harder to kill, or do you recommend getting a pack of plants like from a? There's a lot of retailers that have like beginner kits and stuff like that.
Mm.
What kind of things would you look for plants?
Yeah, there's a couple of things to watch out for. So I think the number one thing is make sure the plants are healthy to start with. Because no matter what plant you get, even if it's the easiest plant in the world, if it's not healthy to start with, then you're going to be fighting a losing battle. Especially in a new aquarium setup or a setup that isn't conducive to great plant growth, you're really going to struggle. And that's a real problem because especially if a beginner struggles with a plant and they fail with a plant, then they're going to have a bad experience. They've invested money, they've invested time, and they've not had a good experience. They've had no fun doing it, so they're just probably going to give up on plants. And for me, that's a tragedy. So it's really important that they invest in healthy plants to start with. Now, how they can do that, there's a few ways. Hopefully they can walk into a local retailer and be able to identify if the plants are healthy. There's lots of tips for that. So obvious things are hopefully there's no algae. Sorry, I'm on an American video. So there's no algae on there. There's no pest snails. Look at the leaves. Hopefully there's no pale growth or yellowing growth. Look at the roots. Hopefully they're like a nice bright white colour. They're not translucent or brown. So it's just some like kind of physical signs to look out for. And assuming they're all healthy, then stick with easy plants. Anubias, we talked about, Java Fern is a classic. Although a little bit of a caveat with Java Fern, it actually does really do better in a higher energy system, especially things like Trident Fern. It does like a little bit more light than CO2 in my experience. But Anubias, Java Fern, Crypts, these are perfect for beginners. Give them a nutrient-rich substrate. They'll almost grow in the dark. Don't need CO2 injection. You'll probably get some melt, so the plant will adjust to its new conditions, and to do that, it sheds its leaf and generates new leaves. And that can be quite worrisome, especially for a beginner. But don't worry. Hopefully, if you've got a good system, or you just give them some root capsules if you haven't got a decent substrate, and you'll get new growth. So Anubias, Java Fern, Crypts, mosses. Mosses are quite funny because to actually get a moss to look really super healthy, like you do in some of the photos, it actually needs some, better conditions than people give it credit for. Bucophalandra we've talked about already. That's relatively easy, but again, to make it look pristine, it needs like super clean water, and again, it thrives in higher energy conditions, maybe with a bit of CO2 and a bit more light. But yeah, I mean, if you're willing to take a bit of a gamble, then maybe buy one of these kind of bumper starter packs that you can get from an online retailer. Stick them all in your tank, see what grows well for you, and then you'll know what's going to grow well in the long term. What doesn't grow well, just chuck that out. Make a note. Yeah, they don't do very well in my tank. I'll avoid them in the future. But these plants that do well, like Vallis is another one, especially if you have harder water.
Oh, yeah.
Sagittarius, another easy one. Hygrophilus, Ludwigias, Rotalas. All of these, most of them are relatively easy. So, maybe it is a little bit of a risk going online, but, online reviews or word of mouth, join a community. This is a really good tip. If you can join a local plant club, if it's online or even a physical meeting, I'm not sure what the restrictions are like at the moment. But this is the best way, plant swaps, learning from people with genuine experience, genuine credibility. They're going to give you really good advice. Maybe seek some mentorship, and don't be afraid to reach out online as well. There's some really, really good people out there with a lot of experience that are happy to share their time and energy with you. They're passionate, they're passionate about promoting the hobby. They're passionate about lifting people up and spreading the word. And aquascaping is... and planting aquariums is just something really special, and the vast majority of people in our hobby are lovely people, and they just want to help each other out. So it's never been a better time, in my opinion, in my experience. There's never been a better time to get into the hobby. There's so much great information out there, so many great products. There's another caveat to that.
Yeah,
there's so much information out there that can be a little bit overwhelming. There's dozens of YouTube channels, some with conflicting advice, dozens of Facebook groups. Everyone's an expert. So, do seek out those people with genuine kind of time in the hobby. Look at their work, look at what they've created, look at the content they're producing. Is it good quality? Do they have a good reputation? And then follow that path. That's my advice to beginners.
I know my first planted tank, and this was a long time ago, but I bought a plant pack from Taiwan or something like that. Just a whole bunch of plants from overseas, and they arrived. I had no idea what any of them were. I had some idea of like, oh, this will probably be taller. I'll put it in the background and stuff.
Yeah.
That tank went on, like I kept that tank for probably 7 or 8 years. And the stuff that lived, the parts of that set that lived are still in all my tanks. Like I just, and that's kind of how I discovered what I can keep and what I can't keep, is just getting kind of a variety of things. So that's where I learned about crypts and how that they will live forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is trial and error, and there is an element of risk, of course, especially when you buy.
Thank you so much for watching this brief excerpt from the Water Change Companion. The full version of this will be available at the end of the week. See you then.